Hello and welcome back to Belmont Bunch. This week we are going over why the Islanders have so many problems, what they can do about it, who's been playing well, who's not been playing well, and why me and Tom are the best people to listen to about those problems. Right, Tom?
Sure.
All
Sure,
right.
James. Okay, everyone, the theme for this week is anxiety. That's the theme for like every week since 2020 started. Um,
Yeah, we're month 14 into this year,
yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, kind of an update on how the team's been doing and talk about who has been hot, who has been not, of course, the widely loved part of the video. And yeah, I'm a little bit worried right now. The Isles, they did well to beat Boston. They do not get a point out of Pittsburgh in 2 games. And it's kind of getting to that point in the season. You kind of stop having fun. I hate to say it like that, but in a 56 game season, the Islanders have played 36 now, so we have 20 games left. And now it's scoreboard watching, and you get all of the anxious parts of being a fan. And yeah, we're tied with Pittsburgh on points now. We're tied. We play the same amount of games. They have a goal differential one better than us. We are like basically the same team, except they beat us like every time they play us. And that
Six,
is part
six, 6 out of the 8 times they beat
six
us.
out of the eight. So almost every.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't really enjoy too much at this point. Even if they were playing well, you'd be worried about seeding because it's not like they were going to run away with this division. That's extremely difficult.
Yeah.
But got a little bit of help from the Rangers yesterday in terms of like staying in the division race. We're 2 points behind Washington with they have a game in hand, not us. But they had 2 games in hand with a chance to go up by 4 points, and the Rangers beat them. And I saw varying things like that is a good thing from the perspective of, oh, we could still win the division, which is something the Islanders haven't done since I think '84. And obviously it's not the biggest deal in the world because the NHL playoffs are so unpredictable. You could come in as any seed and have a chance, but I think it'd be a nice little accolade for the team that has been working extremely hard and trying to get past this Anders Lee injury.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of the reason that it's been so difficult to watch. And basically, at this point in the season, I'm just looking at how are we doing against the 2 teams that we're likely to play in the playoffs. And it's not very good between Pittsburgh and Washington. We get a bunch of Washington games coming up, so they get a chance to prove themselves. But I don't know, James, what do you think? Are you anxious?
Uh, so I don't know if it's just because we've played now Pittsburgh 8 times, but I think going into the playoffs, assuming everything stays roughly the same as it is now,
Mhm.
and I would actually be more worried about playing Washington than Pittsburgh. We still have 4 games against Washington, and what you said, I think it was last week, kind of scared me. You were like, the coach of Washington was the previous coach of the Nashville Predators,
Yeah.
and what's his name? What's that coach's name?
Peter Laviolette.
He just has, I guess, either Barry Trotz's number or just the Islanders' number in general, where
Both.
yeah, both, yeah. So I don't know. That definitely scares me. Where if we don't have home ice advantage and we're playing the Caps, like I don't see how there's a way that we could win. Oh, and one extra thing I wanted to mention was if it
Mm.
really is a coaching matchup between Laviolette and Trotz, like if it
Yeah.
really comes down to the coaches and the decisions they make with the lines they put out on the ice, the next 4 games against Washington are all at home. So we definitely have an advantage there.
Huh.
I say that now, but then we'll lose all of them or something.
Well, that's going to be big then. That's going to
Yeah,
be huge because, we got to see how we play them on home ice. We seem to play everybody better on home ice.
yeah, exactly. I think the only team we lost to was the Flyers, and that was that blowout loss because they were probably mad they lost the Rangers the night before or whatever.
Well, that was only 4-3. It was almost a blowout because we were getting
Oh
blown
right,
out.
we got. I
And
thought it
then
was.
they
Hang
ripped
on.
our hearts out with that goal last
Let's
minute.
check the schedule. Yeah, it was only 4-3.
Yeah, 4-3.
Yeah, and then we blew them out the next night. We
Yeah.
won 6-1. So, but
Hmm.
but anyway, so that's at the moment. I guess it remains to be seen how much I'm worried about who we play more in the playoffs because we're gonna at one point, assuming we make it past the first round, have to play one of the teams, Pittsburgh or
Yeah.
Washington. No, I will not reconnect my file history drive. Um, so the other thing I wanted to mention was every single game this week. First game against Boston, the 2 games against Pittsburgh, we went down 2-0 in the first
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
And so this is where I'm piecing it together, Tom. All right? This is why we lost against Pittsburgh. I think they have, in their whole game strategy, maybe it's just against the Islanders or in general, to get ahead of us, right? Because then we're going to keep on making those defensive lapses to try and get ahead. So like I think you made that point, and you said it was somebody else's point when your recap video, and you were saying that if the Islanders have to, sacrifice or make some like loose defensive plays to try and get the puck into the offensive zone or whatever to pinch or something like that, it's like that is such a break then if we don't capitalize on it, which we normally don't, and then Pittsburgh can have an easy odd man rush going the other way and something like that. And that seemed to be happening. I don't remember exactly how often in the games, but I felt like that was true enough, because there are I'm not advanced yet enough to like analyze it, in detail, but it felt like what you were saying was true. Like they were just kind of cutting through our defense way too easily in some areas.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I was going to say is also about those games was that I don't know. I think the Islanders tend to play better when they have days off between games. That's probably true for most teams.
Yeah, most teams.
Time to rest. But I think they tend to heat up during the games. I don't know if it's just they get their head in the game, they just get they get warmed up. I don't know. But like they are, I think right now, one of the best third period teams in hockey.
They are, and that's a very kind way also of saying that they suck in the first period.
Well, I mean, but yeah, whatever. So
yeah, but you're right, I think.
So I don't know if it's just, I don't know what that is. It could just be coincidence, like weird number coincidences. But so yeah, that's like, I think if they just are able to tighten their game in the first period, maybe not even score, just not dig themselves into a hole.
Yeah.
Then that's how they would end up beating Pittsburgh. I wouldn't be surprised. I might go back and check this out, but how in all the Pittsburgh and all the Washington games, how many games we've been down in the first period?
Yeah, well, I think, what you were saying is, like I had 2 points about the Pittsburgh games. One was that I think they're using our forecheck against us.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of and this was pointed out on the broadcast. That's why I said it wasn't my like original point. It was more, I think it was Dominic Moore was on the broadcast, and he's a former player, and he was saying that the Penguins are doing a really good job of goading the Islanders into the forecheck and then being quick enough to, spring passes through the zone. So now you have like an Islander player trapped up in the offensive zone.
Yeah.
Now you like systematically like eliminating one Islander from the play.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
It's totally just a chair moving upstairs, but anyway.
But so they done a really good job at that, and that's something I it's been a little bit since we played Washington, so I'll pay attention to that for the Washington games and see if they're doing something similar, because then that would really worry me. It would feel like there's a book out on the Islanders in terms of like, okay, just basically copy what the Penguins have been doing against us.
I think like that would worry me, but at the same time, like then as soon as the Islanders know that, as soon as whatever, like everybody understands that, like then you can correct it.
Yeah, so. But the Islanders are also a fairly stubborn team, and that makes sense. Like you don't want to get off Barry Trotz's game plan because he makes really good game plans, and his game plan is not really the reason that they've fallen behind in those games, but there's been a lot of uncharacteristic defensive lapses from guys who, in previous years hadn't struggled as much. Scott Mayfield is the first person I feel like this year that everybody has been on. But recently I haven't been very high on, Hickey had the great first game.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's been great since. And Andy Green, for me, I don't really trust him. So, and even Pellich, who's probably our best defensive defenseman, he kind of fell down on that goal, the first goal that Pittsburgh scored the other day. And I think, I saw some not Lou slander. I saw some Trotz slander, which I hadn't seen since like very early in the season. And that was more so on lineup decisions. In-game adjustments, kind of like you pointed out, the fact that there's such a difference between their first period and their third shows that, like, yeah, Barry Trotz is really good at adjusting on the fly.
Yeah.
But the thing that worries me is they're a team that can't really play from behind all that well. They're a team that's built to take a slight lead and then hold on to it because they have good goaltending and they generally play good defense. And when they don't have their forecheck, worked against them, their forecheck does a really good job of, getting a team stuck in their own zone for a while and creating chances off of the forecheck. But, yeah, like Pittsburgh and Washington have seemed to be kind of immune to that, and that's worrying. And we're going to have to play one of them in the playoffs. That's almost certain because right now we're the 2 seed, but we're exactly tied with Pittsburgh. I think we're ahead. I don't even know what tiebreaker we're ahead on because we have fewer wins.
We're ahead on, I think, regulation wins.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that's probably because that's usually the
more
first
regulation
tiebreaker.
wins than they do.
Okay. That's the first tiebreaker. The second, I think, is just wins in general.
Probably, yeah.
So we're just barely ahead of them on a tiebreaker, and they're our kryptonite in that it feels like they can adapt. Early in the season, they couldn't defend Pittsburgh. They'd really bad, but it's starting to look like maybe that was more so their goaltending not being good, and now their goaltending is awakened.
Yeah.
Although
sorry. No, I'll let you finish.
Tristan Jarry got hurt in the game against us, and
did we find out what happened there?
We don't really know yet. We do know that they called up a goalie, which means
so he's probably
at least
out for
he'll probably at least miss a game or two. But yeah, it didn't seem like something severe enough for him to be out very long term. But
that happened in the first Pittsburgh game, right?
Yes. No, sorry, second.
The Boston game that was on Thursday.
Yeah.
Rask left after the first period.
Yeah.
Too.
Oh, yeah. So that is weird. Yeah, we had that happen
That
twice.
was weird. I don't think we're injuring the goalies or anything. I think it's
it looks like off. It looks like stuff away from the play. And the Rask one, he's been battling an injury. So it was something that flared up.
You know what?
Yeah, it was. We know as much as hockey will let us know, which is upper body.
Okay.
But they did. I think the MSG cameramen found the play that it looked like it was on, and it was just he had made a save, and the rebound squirted out a little bit, and he reached forward, and he looked like he grabbed his side as he did it. So some sort of abdominal thing, maybe upper body, of course. But that game kind of. I don't want to say it turned on that because I don't want to take away credit from the Islanders for really waking up after that because they did. But the Isles right now, it feels like they're in need of those fortunate things going their way.
Well,
and,
I think it hurt us in the second Pittsburgh game because DeSmith was fantastic.
Yeah, he was very good.
I'm sure Jarry would have played well regardless, but DeSmith made a lot of big saves in that one.
Yeah, he made a ton. And that's a little bit worrying is early in the season, it wasn't like this because we were getting the depth scoring. But right now, since we're not getting depth scoring, whenever we miss a chance, like you saw Pajot hit the post and then hit the goalie, and then we had a bunch of wraparounds that the goalie was able to stop DeSmith. And it's just a little bit worrying because we're starting to see playoff hockey kind of start to emerge already. That Pittsburgh game felt like a playoff game.
Yes.
And Pittsburgh is figuring out kind of how to absorb, very Islander-like, how to absorb pressure and bend but not break, which is something the Islanders are usually excellent at. But basically the last few times we've played Pittsburgh, they have worked that against us. And I need to see more out of Bo, Bailey, Brock, the whole second line. And
what about first line Leo Komarov though?
Oh God. Well, actually, that can transition us really well into our trade section if you want to move on to that.
I do want to just linger on this a little bit longer because I also did want to say because I wanted to just bring up a few forwards because you were talking about the defense, which I completely agree with. However, I also did want to. The honorable mentions in the defense have to be Leddy. Still, he's still an assist secondary, a lot of secondary assists, but still an assist making machine.
He actually has 8 primaries in his last 15 assists. That's pretty good.
That's really good, yeah. And then Pulak, who's been
Mm-hmm.
really steady defensively. As far as I don't remember any blatant defensive lapses or anything like that. He
Can't get the
just
puck
like
on net.
closes his eyes before he shoots. I don't
Oh
know.
God. Yeah, it's that meme has never been more true.
Yeah.
That he can shoot 100 miles an hour, but he can't put it on net.
I mean, that's like the sacrifice, I guess like the speed or the power for the
Yeah.
accuracy. And then so for offense, I want to mention that Bo and Barzy are starting to hopefully heat up again. They had some production this week, even though obviously we lost both Pittsburgh games.
Mm-hmm.
And Peugeot has been incredibly steady. Like I don't remember now his record off the top of my head for the season, but it seems like he's not a streaky player. He's
Mm-hmm.
more like
Yeah.
a really reliable person. I'm sure he's a great guy, but he's a really really reliable player in terms of like production. I don't know that off the top of my head. That's how I feel. Okay, so don't tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, and listen, your facts don't care about the feelings.
Exactly.
I just like destroyed that quote by accident. But
Destroyed by
either
facts
way,
and logic. Tom.
yeah. But he's been pretty steady. Especially he really likes to play Boston. He's been
Yeah.
excellent again. I think he has 5 goals against Boston in 5 games. That's
Damn.
I mean, he hasn't been one of the guys that I've looked at and gone, hey, I want more.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, yeah, I've said this a lot. I feel like it's having a second Cizikas, but one that can score a little more, because he's always got that motor, and he's like a guy that is always going to hustle, like 100% of the time. And Cizikas and him are very similar, except that Peugeot has more of a scoring touch.
Yep, that makes sense. So the last thing I wanted to bring up too, which is I just think it's hysterical that the first line is a diversion. So that like who cares if Barzy and Eberle don't score anything because Leo Komarov's with them, but the third line has been wreaking havoc, whatever, I don't know, has been really probably producing the most out of any of the lines this past week.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, Wahlstrom has won a regular spot, which is great. And everybody keeps freaking out because he keeps getting sent down to the taxi squad in between games. Don't worry, that's been happening all season. It's some sort of quirk in the rules of like transactions that they're doing that. So don't worry if you see him getting sent down. It's or not sent all the way down. Taxi squad. It's some sort of quirk financially. So don't worry about that. He's been excellent. Playing with Peugeot is really good for him, I think, because he hasn't had the pressure of playing on the first line yet, and he's had sheltered minutes, but he's been buying into it a little bit better than Bellows, who still is kind of in the doghouse with Trotz. But we had Ross Johnston on that line the other day, on that third line.
That's what I wanted to bring up too. Yeah.
Go ahead. You say
I just
your
wanted
thing.
to say he just took that penalty in the first first 3 minutes, whatever it was.
Yeah, it was like his first shift.
Yeah, and I was just like, and it was his first game back since January. Like, and I like Ross Johnson a lot.
Mm-hmm.
However, I do think in the beginning of the season he was definitely getting away too many fights. Like, just like I know that's his thing, but everybody knows
it's all about timing with the fights too.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to have
to get into the beginning of a game or something.
I mean, you could maybe. It depends on obviously you just never want to take a penalty in doing so. You don't want to get an instigator penalty, something like that.
And so that's all I wanted to say about him is that like I was really hopeful that he would prove himself. He did he have an assist or something? I remember later in the game he definitely had a few good plays, but in the beginning he was like
he had an opportunity to score where he got stopped on a decent play, but I this is where I was going to go with the Trotz thing earlier is I don't want to see the slander about the lineup because here's the thing, he's kind of basically just throwing stuff at the, what's the expression? Throwing stuff
at the wall
and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
And
the PG version stuff at the wall.
And you can't fault him for trying. Although, I think the Leo one goes a little too far, putting Leo on the first line. He's just it was one play in the first Pittsburgh game where Barzal was skating around and he was looking for someone to pass to, and Leo was in the middle of the slot, and it's like, oh, perfect. And he drops it off. Leo had already started skating back to the bench. Leo does not have the offensive instincts to even exist on that line with Barzal. You need somebody that's always ready to receive a pass because Barzal has a lot of deceptive, like through his legs passes or stuff like that. And Leo just doesn't have those instincts. There's just no cohesion. And at least I think now, if you're Barry at this point, I hope he's seen that and gone, all right, we got to figure something out. And the other day, he did it a little bit on the power play, having Martin be the Anders Lee stand-in. And yeah, look, on the power play, without, prior to having made a trade, that is like a way that you can do some patchwork on missing Anders Lee. But I think it's pretty clear this team needs reinforcements now because Ross, I just don't want anything to do with Ross. I know you like him. I don't want anything to do.
He's like the friend in the friend group that's too extreme. You're like, look, man, I love you, but
he's Winston on New Girl.
The cops always end up getting called every time we hang out.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say on New Girl, there's the guys that all live in the apartment. And they're all like, oh, we love doing pranks, and it's like, oh, we'll put a tack on the desk or something like that. And then he's like, we should kill his parents.
I haven't watched that show, but that's hysterical.
It's decent. It's very funny. Yeah. I like it a lot. I didn't want to. I feel like people see me as lesser now. But oh God, where was I going with?
Well, you were saying reinforcements, and I think we were going to segue into the trade stuff.
Yes.
There's been news that's come out and stuff.
Sure. First, I will say my piece about Ross Johnston.
Oh yeah, sorry. I thought you were done.
That is that. Look, when you're getting an opportunity, the first thing you should do, I feel, is just like get a feel for the game. It's his first game, like you pointed out, since January. And I would think that you would want to feel your way into the game a little bit, maybe lay a few hits, but just like get the puck deep, get off the ice, just like roll the four lines, and not try to do too much. And you can't take that penalty. You can't.
They scored off that penalty, right?
Yeah, they did. Yeah. And that was already like it's a mental block for the Islanders right now, which is you can't go down to Pittsburgh because the Islanders have some sort of mental block against Pittsburgh. And I feel like that just lost the game right there. Like the first giving up that power play goal, like it felt like every fan and every Islander collectively went, here we go again. Mm-hmm. And Ross put us in that position. And I don't think he'll see the ice again for a while. I think Barry surprised. At this point in the season, I think Barry's patience is probably low. Not because like the guys haven't been doing the job, but more so because like you can't be too patient right now. Mm-hmm. You need immediate results, especially against teams that you're going to play in the playoffs. So anyway, that's my thing about Ross. Yeah. So the trade deadline, it's becoming more and more obvious that we really, really need to bring somebody in, and obviously,
okay. Wait, I don't want to cut you off. I just want to say this one thing. I am very curious to hear because last week you talked about the possible offensive players and stuff like that. So I want to hear how your opinion has changed on this, or updated or whatever on this. Because I have just a piece about it I want to say as well. But,
sure.
So anyway, so continue.
So my general mindset has pretty much been the same. Like,
okay,
my screen. I would love a top six forward, preferably one that's used to playing on the left. And this unfortunately doesn't seem to be like something that's on the market, but a net front presence would be huge. Somebody to be something like Anders Lee. Mm-hmm. And it's becoming clear, by the way. I think every day that the Islanders play without Lee, I have more respect for Anders Lee. Yeah. Because we make fun of the his sitting office, in front of the net,
his chin.
Well,
we admire his chin. Sorry, I shouldn't.
Yeah. But look, at this point, if I feel like the first thought is like, oh, just throw another big guy on the line and see it. Mm-hmm. It's clearly not working. So Matt Martin has a little bit of better offensive instincts, and I saw this on Twitter the other day as well. I think the account was Gary Sanchez, which obviously isn't his real name because it's the name of a Yankee, but really good. I don't always agree with him, but he was like at this point, until you get somebody, Matt Martin on the first line makes more sense than Leo. Mm-hmm. Matt Martin has 6 goals. Matt Martin has a little bit of better offensive instincts, and he has clearly better net front presence than Leo. at this point, I know nobody ever wants to break up the fourth line, but until you get a trade done, if you don't like Bellows, like if they just don't feel Bellows is mature enough or ready to do what they need him to do, go to Matt Martin. You signed him for 4 years. You may as well get the use out of him. And the fact that, he might finish this year as his number one offensive totals ever. He did have a 10-goal season in like 14-15, I think it was. So that's going to be hard to reach. Actually, maybe it depends.
He's at 6.
He's at 6. Yeah, so it's not impossible. And obviously,
with 20 games left, I think.
Yeah,
I mean, he's got a good chance. I'd say.
Yeah, in a full regular season,
it's true. Yeah.
He would definitely hit it.
Yeah,
almost definitely.
That's These guys, weird to think we wouldn't even be at the halfway point yet if this was a full season.
Yeah, it's crazy. Although, like, time of year wise, like calendar wise, we're like close to where we would be. But you're right. Like it's weird 36 games in to be so, distraught
like
about
teeth,
playoff
like,
position.
Playoffs.
Yeah. But the news that I was going to bring up for the trade deadline, possibly no more Ricard Raquel. He has a concussion. They don't rush players back from those, or they shouldn't. And that didn't look great. Yeah. It didn't look good the other night for him. And Philip Forsberg, it was announced literally today that he is going to be out. He's week to week. And
what
also, I'm not exactly sure. I haven't been watching a ton of Nashville, but Nashville, by the way, has gotten themselves. So the last time we did this video, they were kind of far out of a playoff spot. I don't know if they still are. Actually, I have it up in front of me. Let's see. They had gotten into a playoff spot for a sec. They are in the 4 seed right now. They were the 7 the last time we spoke.
Wow.
They have won 6 in a row.
1 week.
Yeah, they've won 6 straight. They've won 6 of 7. 7 of 8, something like that. And so that kind of takes them out of the sellers pool. They're not going to be selling off assets when they've finally awakened.
Mm-hmm.
So tough for the Islanders in that perspective, because that's basically just cross that team off the list right now. Although the trade deadline, it's
April 12th.
Yeah, so it's not super
just
far
under
away.
2 weeks away.
Yeah, so Nashville's in the thick of it. I don't see them like falling out of it enough to like go from like 4 seed to we'll sell in like 2 weeks. So you kind of cross them off the list. So I don't know. I still feel Hall is probably the best option in terms of possession numbers look good. And I think you kind of have to just throw away goals and assists, considering the team he's playing for right now has lost 18 games in a row and is going for the record tonight on NBCSN, actually in like 10 minutes. So, things have tightened up a little bit. Although I have seen the possibility that Arizona, who is actually only a point out of the playoffs, so it's a little bit hard to believe still, but that they might trade Connor Garland, who's a good goal scorer. Definitely not like a net front guy. He's kind of like a quick, small guy as well. I don't know. There's not like a perfect match on the market for me right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think you're kind of, in a way, fitting a square peg into a round hole. But I think Taylor Hall's, I think his dynamic nature can kind of make up for that. I know that's kind of fallen off. He's been kind of underwhelming for like 2 or 3 years now. But the way I see it,
his underwhelming is like very whelming for the Islanders.
Yes. Well, here are the things I see as low risk. We need a rental. People need to remember that Anders Lee will be being paid by next season. So that's $7 million that's free right now. That is temporary. That is so you need a rental, in my opinion, or else you're going to end up trading somebody you don't want to trade in the offseason. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing. If you decide, we're just going to get rid of somebody in the offseason, that's going to require, like, if you're trying to trade Andrew Ladd or you're trying to like dump a contract, guess what? That costs a first round pick. And what would you rather do? Would you rather use that first round pick to get better now, or wait until the offseason and then use it just to offload a contract. I think the Islanders organization needs to have the mentality of a winner, because for a long time it hasn't. They finally have a perfect, opportunity to do so, to buy and have the team, basically be a contender. Last year they came within 2 games of the Stanley Cup, like reaching the Stanley Cup. So I don't know. The timing has never been better for them to have a go for it shot. And I think the last week or so kind of struggling almost makes it a better reason to be they need to go for it. This is a tough division. I feel like they're sitting ducks if they don't do anything come playoff time. And that was my rant. I think Taylor Hall. And the other reasons it's low risk. He's a rental. Most of his salary has already been paid because it's a 1-year deal by Buffalo. I don't necessarily care about parting with a first-round pick, because it's going to be a later pick, because you're going to be a playoff team, right? Right? He stares. They're going to be a playoff team, so that pick won't be a very high pick. And also on top of that,
you think it would just be 1 first-round pick for Hall?
It's possible. He is kind of helping us out by the fact that he's his counting numbers aren't good.
Do you think Buffalo though would really you know what I mean? They would probably be like, shut the fuck up.
I don't know. I think Buffalo,
we want as much as possible.
He's not going back to them. He's never in a million years.
For sure.
So, if you've got a guy who a week ago somebody asked him, would you waive your no trade clause to leave Buffalo? And he said, for sure. Nobody says that in hockey. Nobody ever says that. So he is desperately looking for a way to get out of town. Yeah. And look, part of this is COVID related. A lot of the prospects for this year's draft, first of all, this is not considered to be an extremely
that I've heard you make a few times, and I definitely agree.
This is not considered to be a super high powered draft. So, you're hypothetically missing out on less than in another year. Your first round pick is going to be a later pick anyway. You've got Buffalo, who kind of just needs to offload Taylor Hall. So I think a first-round pick could get it done. And if not, we have 2 seconds next year. So maybe you move one of those. I don't know if it would cost that much, though. Taylor Hall's not been good. So that kind of helps us.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is a lot of these prospects haven't gotten to play a lot this year because of COVID. So, the prospect rankings, who knows how good they are? How are your scouts going to watch kids who aren't playing? So I feel like this is a draft where it's going to be a big crapshoot anyway. So, I mean, maybe if you were a team that was on the fringe, you'd say, oh, then maybe you'd want more draft picks so you have more shots at it. But look, I don't want to have the minnow mentality. I want the Islanders to be Chad Alphas and go out there and own that. I hate me. Go out there, own the deadline. And I think blue line. We have Dobson looking like he'll be back for the next game. And
I forgot to ask that question. So you think, or because our next game is Friday?
Tonight.
It's Thursday now. Okay, I wasn't sure. So he should be back for the first game against the Washington Capitals.
Yeah, it looks like it.
All right.
But I did see a guy on waivers today that I wouldn't necessarily be angry about picking up. He wouldn't be a rental, but he's making very little, so it's not hard to move. He's making $1.7 million. This is Nick Holden, who's a left-handed defenseman, got waived by the Vegas Golden Knights. He's the kind of guy that, as long as he's only playing on the bottom pair, he could be excellent on the bottom pair. And that's just me personally preferring maybe a shakeup over Hickey and Green, because I'm not super high on either at the moment. And so Nick Holden, you don't see a lot of waiver claims. Shane Gostisbehere just got through waivers. That's mostly because he's making a lot of money, and he's making a lot of money for a few more years, and he's been terrible. So nobody wanted to take that shot.
I see.
But Nick Holden is a guy that's making $1.7 million. That's something that's not difficult to move out if you have to, money-wise. So
do you see in terms of trade? Because what I was interested to see is like how your opinion has been updated on Hall versus any other players. So I'm still I'm definitely of the mindset I'm 100% in on Hall. I think we give we get it if we give a first round pick for him or something like that, whatever it costs, because of the rental situation. Like that's exactly what we need.
yeah,
And ironically, though, I think that will hurt us in the short term because just getting him up to speed with playing with the team, and that might actually make our seeding slightly. I wouldn't be surprised if it hurt our seeding order. So we might end up being the 4 seed or something like that by the time comes playoffs, which could be scary. Like like right before playoffs if we're like on the edge of even making it in. Who knows? It might work out really well. It might work out kind of like a miracle. Yeah. But
I would argue it physically can't be worse than Leo.
Yes, I would agree. That is wait. So you think Leo would just be scratched at that point?
Yeah. Oh yeah, get him away from my team.
But he's Uncle Leo, bro.
I hate to be that blunt, but yeah, he could be Uncle Leo from the press box. He could still go, "Hi, everybody." That's not an Uncle Leo thing.
Yeah, no, I know. So that is a good point because I don't know how Hall plays, but it's obviously not comparable. I'm sure to Anders Lee. It's probably more of like a sniper, playmaker.
Yeah, more. I would call it like an Eberle-esque game.
An Eberle, but he can hit the net.
Well, not this year.
Well, right, yeah. Fair enough.
Well, basically, I think you have to take into account that this is a speculative buy in the world of stonks. This is like
Hockey
a guy
stonks.
This is a guy that's struggled like points wise this year. He only has 2 goals, Taylor Hall. But in his defense, the Buffalo Sabres only have 71 overall. For reference, the Islanders have 106.
I'm going to pull up Hall's stats.
Yeah, I think he has like 2 goals, 15 assists, something like that.
Could be worse. Could be 1 goal, 14 assists.
And obviously, I think maybe people would go, "Oh, but you're looking for a goal scorer."
He's a minus 21.
Yeah, I mean, but like everyone on that team's a minus.
But his career, he's a minus 63.
Yeah, he's played on some bad teams.
Oh, okay. So.
He's been on 2 different teams that have won the draft lottery and picked first overall.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense then.
So
he's from Calgary.
Yeah. So I just there are very few sellers this year because like I look around. Let me look around the standings. Like the Central looked like it was almost wrapped up, and now a bunch of teams. There's 4 teams fighting for one playoff spot. In the East, basically everyone ahead of Jersey is still a competitive team. And Jersey, to Jersey's credit, they're a competitive team. That's not fair to them.
Yeah, like I don't look at our games against Jersey as like a guaranteed win like I would generally against Buffalo, which is obviously still not a smart thing to do. But
it's worked out so far. In the Central, you've got
Central. Okay.
Like I would say San Jose and LA are kind of falling out of it, although they both have games in hand, so it's not impossible.
You mean in the East or the West?
Yeah. So what's tough about this is it feels like because of the loser point, the overtime point, there are so few teams that are out, totally out of the playoffs that like nobody wants to sell, and this is why the NHL trade deadline always sucks. The NBA trade deadline is like first round pick. You want 30 first round picks? Here they are. The NHL trade deadline is nothing like that because like in the NBA, like there's terrible teams. There's just clear terrible teams that are like, yes, draft picks. Thank you. Here's all of our good players. And nobody in the NHL is willing to do that because I feel like that overtime point makes you look better than you are. I mean, let's look at records. If you look at records with like the Montreal Canadiens are 39 points. They're in a playoff spot. They're pretty set to make a playoff spot in the Canadian division. And they've only won 15 of 32 games. They've won fewer than half their games. But guess what? They have 9 overtime points.
That's the equivalent of 4.5 games.
It doesn't really show.
They have at least a positive goal differential. You know, because
Yeah,
it's like
I'll
I'm
give them
looking at
that.
teams like
Yeah,
the Flyers right now. Like they have a negative 17 goal
yeah.
differential. You know, but
They
like
can't. They just can't defend
yeah.
the Flyers. Um, but do you want to move? Well, we've kind of already started talking about it. But going forward,
Mm-hmm.
our going forward section, um,
For the schedule,
the
or are
I'm
you
looking
saying
at
for the team?
no,
The
more
team.
so like long term.
Okay.
Here is why home ice is like the most important thing going forward. The Islanders at home are 13-1-2. They're the best home team in the league.
It's not bad. I've seen better. Excuse you.
The their away record is 9-9-2. Extremely average.
That's. I mean, I would say. Oh yeah, I guess that's average, right?
Yeah.
It's like I would want to say it's worse than average, but I guess that technically is average or
Yeah, it's
roughly
like,
about. You know.
you know. But so yeah, it's night and day. You hypothetically in a playoff series against Pittsburgh, and you've somehow managed to win 3 games, which is more than you won all year, and you're going into Game 7. Would you rather go into Game 7 going home to the Coliseum or to Pittsburgh, where
Barclays
we
Center.
just dropped?
We go to the Barclays Center.
Yeah,
It's the only way. Yeah.
According to ESPN, we're going to be playing all of our games at the Barclays Center because we already have played all of our games so far there.
Oh, okay.
So look, it sucks to like think too far ahead because I feel like I'm not going to get to enjoy this next 20 games. But I mean, if they don't finish first or second in the division, and they don't go out and get somebody, they're not going to get very far in the playoffs. They're gonna.
So let's assume the order stays roughly the same in the seeding right now. So let's say that ideal situation, Islanders finish first, and we play Boston.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
and we've played Boston.
We played well against Boston. You know that, but something tells me like even though we've won 5 games against Boston so far. There's only 5 games we played. Something tells me though that would probably still be a hard fought series because just like it wouldn't be like a 4. It would probably end up going at least to 6 if I had to guess.
Yeah, they have so much playoff experience, that team. And on top of that, we've only blown them out like once. So like we've played close games with them. So
But
yeah,
then
it wouldn't.
Who would win, Washington or Pittsburgh?
That's
who would we play?
That's a really difficult question.
And this is best case scenario too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like that's. I think if we win a playoff series this year, I won't be satisfied, but it would really hurt to they're 22-10-4. They're an excellent team. If they don't get out of the first round, I know you can kind of just say, hey, if it were a regular year, they probably wouldn't have played somebody in our division that's so good.
Yeah, exactly.
But it would still hurt for this team to go out first round with how well they've played. They've had some of the best stretches of hockey I've seen the Islanders ever play, as long as I've been watching them. So that would suck. And to answer your question about Washington and Pittsburgh, up until the last few years, Pittsburgh had owned Washington, and Washington beat them once and won the cup. I think I'd take Pittsburgh right now. I think
over Washington. Yeah,
I think Pittsburgh is playing a style that could stymie Washington, and like if I guess I was going to say if they could stymie the Islanders, they could stymie Washington, but Washington clearly has better offense. Washington has they've played one fewer game and they have 121 goals to our 106. So they're definitely a better offense, but the way Pittsburgh is playing is like championship caliber hockey at the moment. I still think they wouldn't win it all. I think Tampa or Carolina could give them trouble. Again, like the playoff structure is really kind of hazy after, because you have one team that wins each division through the playoff rounds. Right. And then I think it gets reseeded from there. I don't know. This is a weird year.
Yeah.
And I haven't even, as an Islander fan, I'm not looking past, the East playoffs because
it's funny.
It's gonna be really tough.
I haven't even thought of that. That's gonna be. I feel like we're gonna have some really lopsided games in the semifinals, I guess.
Possibly
because
in
it's gonna
other
be like
divisions.
the first meeting with any team from another division, it's like I just feel like it's gonna be weird. It's gonna be wacky.
It'll be a weird adjustment. I think in that scenario, I would give the series to whoever has the best coach, because then you would assume that they could adjust quicker. And so again, this is funny because I always say this with the Islanders. It's not about because they play like playoff hockey.
Yeah.
But I feel like every year going into the season, I say it's harder for the Islanders to make the playoffs than go far in them, like with the Trotz team, because I feel like this team is not like usually the regular season is very, it's more so high flying, a lot of scoring, and the Islanders play, the slower pace.
Yeah.
And then come playoff time.
Yeah. Secure the point or victory or something like that kind of mindset. Yeah.
Yeah. And then come playoff time, then the Islanders are already playing their game and other teams are still trying to get into playoff mode, and it gives the Islanders a head start.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, since it's almost like a playoff structure, because you're playing like series with teams, like 2 or 3 games in a row against a team, I think teams might be a little bit better prepared for the playoffs. But like you said, there's going to be a big adjustment once they get in.
I think so. I tabulated the Washington-Pittsburgh record. So
yeah,
they played 6 games so far. Pittsburgh's won 4. Washington's only won 2.
Okay.
So, and that's I didn't check if there was any overtime points or not, but that's basically the same record the Islanders had against Pittsburgh before these last 2 games too.
That makes me feel
might just have really
bit
found
better.
their game.
Yeah, and you know what sucks about this too is
they do this every year.
Yeah, I mean every single year. Every year I go.
Oh my God, you look so sad right now.
Well, every year I go, all right, I'm just so tired of how good they are. Like they just don't go away. And I know, like older Pittsburgh fans know how terrible they were. So it's kind of like the Patriots. I respect it a lot. But I still hate them.
Yeah.
But I respect it. But I hate them. But I respect. But I hate.
Yeah, you just keep on going back and forth. It's right on the edge of like you can't stand it, but like you got to kind of realize that they're just good.
I mean, they like. The guys like I don't know. I pay a lot of attention to this league, and I don't know half the guys that have scored for them against the Islanders this year.
I guess that's the depth scoring. That's what I thought. I legitimately laughed on your recap where you were like, they get fake players to play around Crosby.
They get Harry. Oh, there's this new guy named Harry Houdini. Let's see how he does. Yeah. Oh, 3 goals and an assist.
Yep. His first
playing
3
with
goals
Crosby.
against the Islanders. Wow, how weird.
Playing with Crosby is just the greatest thing.
But so anyway, I think I said everything I wanted to say. I said I just have this weird feeling that like we are still 20 games out. A lot could still happen. Teams that like Boston is slipping slowly down the ranking. I think they'll be fine, but you never know.
I
Philadelphia
agree. I think they'll be okay. I think Boston's got 2 games in hand and they're 3 points up. And the way that I would actually say it is way more likely that the Rangers get in than Philly does.
Interesting. That sounds interesting. Yeah.
The Rangers. I said this the other day with my brother.
Imagine if we had to play the Rangers in it.
Yeah, well, that would also require us getting hot. Because I don't think I even as good as the Rangers could play, I don't think they're getting higher than 4.
And then I'm guessing then you wouldn't see them getting past the first round.
It depends.
They're playing Washington, maybe.
If they come in hot, and they've actually played Washington really well.
Interesting.
So if they played Washington, I'd give them a shot for sure.
Huh.
And actually, recent playoff history, the Rangers, the Capitals just can't beat them. Like the Capitals blew a 3-1 series lead to the Rangers a while back. They've blown.
But this is the new coach though for the Caps. That's what's interesting.
Yeah, and
we screwed up in reverse, Tom, because we beat up the Caps so bad last freaking playoffs.
Yeah.
That they went out and got the coach literally to spite. I bet it was to spite the the Islanders.
You know? Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think the Islanders, if the Islanders had just outplayed them a little bit less,
exactly,
we might still have Todd Reirden, which would be better off for us.
This is literally though screwing up in reverse, where you do your job too well, where they then give you more work to do or something like that.
It was funny to get a coach fired though.
It was that short term,
Yeah.
you know, whatever enjoyment that
Yeah. And I went into the
wasn't
playoffs
worth it.
last year kind of being like, hey, if they win one series, I'll be pretty. I mean, I was kind of like, we should beat Florida.
Yeah, yeah,
But either way,
yeah. All right. We've droned on too long.
yeah. So, yeah.
We
The
want to
last
move
thing
on
I'll
to our
say,
last segment. Oh yeah, one more thing to say. Okay.
quick thing. The Rangers are really funny because I said this with my brother the other day. There are only two Rangers teams. There's the really terrible, like can't defend at all
Mm-hmm.
Rangers, and then they're God. There's no in between. They did this last year when they like were
Oh
on.
my
They were
God. Yeah.
they get scalding hot,
Mm-hmm.
scalding
Mm-hmm.
hot. And it's scaring me because they're starting. They're 6-3-1 in their last 10. Not like incredible, but very good.
Yeah. I mean, they're
And
definitely
like
on a roll.
I will feel good though if they finish exactly fifth because I picked them to finish fifth.
Wait. Hey, we're 6-4-0 in our last 10, bro. Hey,
Yeah, that's
one
that's
less
12.
point.
We need that's fair. But we need a little more consistency because we've dropped
yes, for sure.
4 points to Washington in that time.
I mean, but Washington's been 8-2-0. That's so funny
Yeah.
because I never really look at the last 10 because I'm always just trying to see the final or
Yeah.
the overall record.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Look at Buffalo's.
I know. I didn't want to say anything.
Yeah. Man,
But anyway,
yeah.
yeah. So the Rangers, I don't know. We'll see. It would be fun to maybe play them in the playoffs or see them in the playoffs, and then hopefully
No, my
win
heart couldn't
against
take
them.
it.
And then no, it would only be good if we beat them. And then,
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, that would be pretty.
Beating
fun.
them would like on just a visceral level be like very high up.
Would you rather the Rangers not make the playoffs at all,
Mhm.
but the Islanders then go on to the Cup, so they
Mhm.
make it out of the division and whatever, or would you rather? I'm not saying the Islanders win the Cup though. It just whatever. We wouldn't know what happens. Or the Rangers make it in the playoffs. Islanders play them. Islanders beat them, but then get knocked out in the next round or whatever. Don't make it to the Cup.
It's a good question. I've never seen the Islanders play the Rangers in the playoffs in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It might be better though. This might not be the good season for it because there's not going to be a lot of fans, and that's got to be
Yeah.
like the best part of those games.
well, that's probably better for like humans not dying, but
Yeah.
both from a COVID perspective and from a physical
Yeah.
fighting perspective.
Oh my god.
But
that would be now that you. It's funny because I didn't think of that. It would be fun to watch on TV, but being there would be scary. It would be
yeah,
tense.
I've told you I don't like going to Islander Ranger games. They're too intense for me. This may come as a shock to everyone, but I'm not really a fighter. So I don't like
I'm shocked.
the anxious energy at those games where it feels
Drama
like
alert.
when we score, when they score like that, I'm like, I'm a very calm person, not really, but like I'll be like, I want to kill that man. I want to kill that man.
Yeah.
I punched an Islander fan before. What do you think I'll do to a Ranger?
Yikes. Damn.
But
anyway.
now but
So,
final thing.
this is
Well,
so we want to move on, or did you have one more last thing to say?
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna do it again. We're doing it again around
All right.
the league in 60 seconds. Tom, remember?
Yep.
So we have 6 seconds. We're gonna talk about some teams. Okay.
Yes.
Do you think you're ready?
Yes, I am.
Now, all the teams, a handful of the teams, roughly how many teams are you thinking?
I have a few teams in particular.
A few teams. Okay, a few teams.
yeah.
A few teams in particular.
Yeah.
Not all the teams. Not one of the teams. Some teams. All right. Are you ready, Tom?
Yeah. Yes.
Around at least 60 seconds talking about the teams. 3, 2, 1, go.
I'm hijacking the segment. The Yankees are baseball has its opening day tomorrow. The Yankees are taking on the Toronto Blue Jays, and it'll be Cole versus Hyunjin Ryu. And let me just say that I am extremely excited. But this is going to be a team that we have to measure ourselves against this year. And I think the Yankees will take 2 out of 3. I'm very excited. Although, they gave us trouble last year. But and I'm going to have an eye on the Yankee pitching. For the Mets get to start off with maybe the best pitchers duel there is in baseball right now, Max Scherzer versus Jacob deGrom. That is going to be so much fun. I'm really excited for it. I think the Mets are going to make a statement out of the gate and take 2 out of 3 as well. And I think Nationals are a good team, but I think Lindor now is going to especially be pushing for that contract, and he's going to have a homer in that game tomorrow. That's a minute.
Wow.
So
I wish I knew more hockey players' names. I didn't recognize any of those names. That's so weird.
Baseball players.
What? April Fools, everybody. We got you.
We got you. You should have seen your face.
Oh, man. We should be we should go to the next open mic night, dude.
Yeah, we're just two wild and crazy guys.
Just gonna be telling wild and crazy guys.
I'll just get up there and be like, man, this guy, can you believe his forechecking? It's horrible. Can you believe? And
but it's a baseball player, and there's nobody there, and everybody's confused.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's just my parents. Can you believe this? And they're like, shouldn't you be remote working? Tough crowd.
It's a Zoom. It's a Zoom stand-up night or whatever. You're like, if everybody can turn their microphones on so I can hear them laughing, that'd be great.
Yes, my ego, please.
Yeah. So, yes, that is it for this week. Any closing thoughts? I think I'm good to go. What about you, Tom?
I'm excited to have baseball as a backup for the Islanders.
Yes,
but
that's fair.
At the same time, don't worry. I feel like I'm talking like I'm out on the Islanders. The Islanders just had a tough stretch against a team that they struggle against. Here's their second opportunity. It felt like that Pittsburgh game was a playoff game on national TV. They played 2 good periods. They almost did it. And now it's like, all right, here you go. You got Washington and Philly.
Yeah.
Rangers.
Here, let me pull up the schedule right just so. Yeah, so it's Washington, Philly, Rangers, mm-hmm. Boston.
So guess what, Islanders? You are going to be playing good teams until you're going to be playing good teams until May 3rd. So this is going to make or break your season, Islanders.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Do things, please, God. Do things. You got 2 left against Buffalo, and look, for as bad as Buffalo's been, if we go 8-0 against them, I'd still be shocked. But this is it. This stretch coming up this week and the week after, this is going to determine where they're going to play their playoff games.
Yes. And all right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. You better heed Tom's warning, or else.
Or else I'll do stand-up comedy.
Yeah, or else we'll start talking about baseball more. And so stay tuned for those game recaps. Tom will be putting them out, the night of the game.
If I feel like it.
And then, if he feels like it. If the Islanders win, he puts out a game recap. Mm-hmm. No. So look out for those. Thank you very much for listening, watching, participating. If you guys are interested in participating, always feel free to reach out to one of us on Twitter or the comment section. We have a very active, lively comment section, so please, be civil down there. All right, goodbye.
That was abrupt.